Around 130 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer each day in the UK. The Stampede trial is investigating new ways to improve survival for men with high risk or advanced disease. In June 2017, it released results looking at the effect of adding a drug called Abiraterone to standard hormone therapy. Professor David Durnley from the Royal Marsden Hospital explains to Stampede participant Maurice Groves how the drug works.
The treatment of prostate cancer depends on affecting testosterone levels and lowering them. And you know the standard injection treatments lower testosterone levels pretty well. But what the abiraterone does by inhibiting a particular enzyme called CYP17 is take the testosterone level down to extraordinarily low levels.
Professor Nick James of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the University of Birmingham is chief investigator of the Stampede trial.
Abiraterone is currently used for men with prostate cancer who've got relapsed disease that has spread to other parts of the body and stopped responding to standard first-line hormone therapies. So the initial licence was for men who had also received chemotherapy for their relapsed disease. In 2013, that was changed to allow it to be used upstream of chemotherapy or in men not ready to receive chemotherapy yet.
We thought that bringing abiraterone earlier in the course of disease, before it had become resistant to the initial hormone treatment, that we might get a very good result. And so you took part in this study, and over 9,000 men are in the Stampede trial altogether. And these results are, for the first time, available to us.
Matthew Sides, project lead on the Stampede trial at the MRC Clinical Trials Unit at UCL, explains what treatment people who took part in this comparison received.
Patients were randomised into two equal-sized groups for this comparison. One of the groups had the usual standard of care, which is based in hormone therapy, some of whom also had radiotherapy. And the other group had exactly the same treatment, but they also had abiraterone and prednisolone, a steroid which is given as part of the marketing licence for abiraterone.
When you started taking abiraterone for the very first time, did you manage to swallow the tablets adequately?
Yeah, no problem.
Because they're quite large tablets, aren't they?
They're quite large tablets, and there's 4 of them. Yes.
Within this comparison, we had 957 men who were allocated to join the standard of care arm and 960 who were allocated to join the research arm, the abiraterone arm. So that's a total of 1,917 men.
In a nutshell, the trial's for men starting long-term hormone therapy for the first time. So this is either men with locally advanced disease with poor risk features like high PSA, high Gleason score, things we know predict a bad outcome, or men with disease that had already spread at the time they were diagnosed, starting permanent hormone therapy in the vein.
The average age of the men, expressed as a median, was 67. They actually range between 39 and 85 in this comparison. 52% of them had disease that had spread elsewhere into the body, and 48% did not. 5% of them had previously had prostate cancer that had been treated locally, so they'd had radiotherapy or surgery in the past, and now they had rapidly relapsing disease. As I say, all were starting long-term hormone therapy for the first time. And lots of people like to hear median PSA value. That was about 50, 51 and 56 on these two arms.
After around 3 years of follow-up, the Stampede team have enough data to look at whether abiraterone can help these men. So what did it find?
The abiraterone really does seem to have had a big benefit for men, and you're an example of that. The progression of disease has been very significantly reduced, and the survival of men has already been improved. And so we think that abiraterone is going to have a very major role in treating prostate cancer when it first presents, both for men who had disease spread like yourself, but also men who have aggressive localized disease as well.
So if we look at, say, 3 years after randomization, this translates into an improvement from about 76 in every 100 men on the control arm still alive to 83 out of 100 men on the research arm still alive. So that's an improvement of about 7 in every 100 men extra who are still alive after 3 years.
The other endpoint that we used for the earlier analyses was failure-free survival, the time taken for men to relapse from their first-line therapy. So that was improved by about 70%, which is, again, we think an improvement of pretty much unprecedented magnitude in a metastatic or advanced cancer population.
And your PSA level then was really quite high, wasn't it?
It was 850.
850. And I'm very pleased to say that it's a lot lower now, isn't it?
0.12.
It's a very, very gratifying response.
It certainly is, yes. I keep asking whether it can go negative, but it can't.
And the second thing was significant skeletal complications like spinal cord compression, fracture, surgery to bone, or radiotherapy for bone pain. These were halved by the use of abiraterone, and not just prior to relapse, but post-relapse they were halved. And the effect appeared to be very uniform across the whole trial population, irrespective of patterns of spread or age or anything really. The effect was really very consistent.
So, abiraterone is clearly very effective at treating prostate cancer. But is this improvement in survival at the expense of greater side effects?
So 1 in 3 men on the control arm had a severe toxicity. The men on the abiraterone comparison are going to be exposed to that risk, plus any risk coming from the abiraterone and the steroid that's given alongside it as well. We saw an increase in the number of men with a severe toxicity from 33 in every 100 on the control arm to 47 in every 100 on the research arm.
So there were some predictable side effects, changes in certain blood chemistry measurements, which meant that we had to either adjust the dose or in some cases stop the drug completely. These were seen at essentially the same frequency as in men in the relapsed disease state. Some men got raised blood pressure. Again, this was a known side effect and was generally quite easy to manage. There are some side effects which may or may not be associated with the abiraterone, like heart attacks and strokes, because these are side effects of standard hormone therapy anyway. So it's a bit difficult to be sure whether these were side effects we'd have seen anyway without abiraterone.
So what do the results from Stampede mean for men with prostate cancer? Robin Millman is a patient representative on the Stampede Trial Management Group.
I think they're a great benefit to patients. We've now got something that can extend failure-free survival, or as a patient might say, disease progression. My PSA isn't going up, my scans aren't getting any worse, I'm not having clinical symptoms, and of course the longer that goes out, then the longer overall survival goes out as well. And it provides an option now in the armoury that clinicians and patients have got to fight the disease.
For one thing, what it means is that if my cancer does come back, I have much greater chance of, well, seeing it off again, or at least being in a situation where I can live with it for a reasonable amount of time, have a reasonable life expectancy. These results tend to make me think, well, the midday is obviously going to be numbered, but maybe the number's going to be a lot bigger.
So the next challenge is to try and make this treatment as available as possible for as many men who may benefit from it as we can. Now, this is going to take a considerable amount of thought, and we're going to have to think about whether the economics of using the abiraterone drug early, how that relates to perhaps keeping it in reserve, how the benefits relate to using chemotherapy, what are the relative pluses and minuses of those two approaches. There'll be other issues to think about. This is extending the indication for the use of abiraterone, which is at the moment in patients who have failed standard treatment, so the licensing will have to be changed to men who are starting treatment. These things need to be addressed as well.
I think there are regulatory challenges, there are funding challenges which will make it harder to change the standard of care immediately, but I think it will change.
Previous results from the Stampede trial have shown that a chemotherapy drug called docetaxel, added to standard hormone therapy, improves survival for men with prostate cancer. So how did the abiraterone results compare to those earlier findings?
Clearly, clinically, they're very different agents. They're used in different ways. There's different issues around the monitoring and the side effect profile, and actually who's going to be fit to receive them. But the second issue that I think is going to dominate initially in the health service is the cost. So we've just completed the health economic analysis of the docetaxel data, and in essence, it's very cheap, because we're giving an off-patent drug for a limited period of time. The benefits are really very large, and the benefits of delaying relapse essentially pay for themselves. The total cost of treating somebody with docetaxel amounts to maybe a few £1,000s. It may actually even be cost saving depending on exactly how you model it. For Abiraterone, it's going to be a very different economic problem. From the point of view of the health service, this year you're spending extra money and you may or may not save some money later. Now that we know is going to be challenging for purchasers.
The men who are currently taking part in Stampede will not benefit directly from these results in terms of their current or future treatment, as the results only apply to men who are starting hormone therapy for the first time. The people who will benefit from these results are men who have not yet started hormone therapy.
When I think about the people who've taken part in Stampede, I owe them a debt of gratitude. Now, I know that when someone's within a control arm, they can often feel that they're not really doing very much because they're not getting the trial drug. But without them, you don't have the comparison. And without the comparison, then people like me wouldn't be in a position to actually benefit from it. When you're faced with a life-threatening disease such as a cancer, you can feel utterly, utterly hopeless. But by being in the control arm, you're contributing the data to what carries on with the standard of care. So we need the comparison of the two. And someone, from my perspective, who hasn't actually been in either of these, I think a deep debt of gratitude is owed, because they've brought to me hope, and they bring hope to those that come after them.
The results so far from Stampede are very encouraging, but its work is not yet done. Patient representative Robin Millman had this message for men taking part in Stampede.
Well, obviously a huge thank you again, but please keep coming along. Please keep the information coming in. We need to keep everything up to date, because there's probably more good news to come out of this trial, and that won't come out unless the men keep participating in it.
What we were doing in the first place was fine.
In general, I think it's a massive tribute to all the more than 9,000 men who've gone in the trial so far to take a chance on going in a trial, a big experiment if you like, and the trial has produced very, very important practice-changing results which have a big impact on men not just in the UK but worldwide, and will do for many years to come.